Welcome everyone to session number 2 of our discussion on children and spiritual culture. Before we start, a couple of little managerial things. I already got some, little, not really chastisement, but some remarks from the management that the children were creating too much mess there outside. So your friend who's taking care of your child, better not to have them here on the property. Okay, and nobody else there has children outside running freely around? No? Of our Russian group there? Nobody? Haribol, please answer. Somebody translating there? Alona? Can you answer? I'm asking. Because here the management asked, to really say that no children should play around outside. They said yesterday there was a lot of mess there and already they're getting on my case. Yes? So there's no children running around there? No? So if people come late, then please you tell them, that they cannot allow the children to play freely outside there. Otherwise, I'm not allowed to do the seminar here next year. And then we have another little announcement. One Mataji lost her wallet yesterday, either here or on the way back. Huh? Green one? Oh, wow, somebody found it. You found it here in the classroom or what? Okay, wow. I didn't even think this would be happening, but just say, unexpectedly. I was saying to her, well, surely somebody would have said, there's a wallet here or something, so I didn't really think we would have found it, but we did. Okay, good. So, before we start lesson number 2, maybe somebody of you would like to just briefly, in own words, repeat, summarize what we discussed yesterday? Anybody volunteers? Just to refresh our memories? Are you allowed? If nobody else, but there's somebody else. So many there. Okay, Prabhuji, start with you.
We discussed about the difference between raising the different conception of children in material culture and spiritual culture, and also of mothers.
Yes, very true.
So basically, mostly we focus on the aspect of the perception of children from the spiritual culture with many points. I could decide maybe one, but not all of them, some of them. But that was the main focus of the class.
Yes, so basically this was one topic, mothers, how they're viewed in spiritual culture, materialistic culture, attitude to children. What else? You had your hand up also? Similar. Yes, we were just introducing that topic, right? How it is much more than just some social function or something, but how the child actually really can be, influenced there, how the Prabhupada describes very nicely, how the parents can actually communicate and connect already with the child in the womb and correct blemishes. I thought that was quite interesting, blemish. It's like a mark or a stain or something, and to correct them, through some scars. Yes. Yeah, that was basically the essence, and again we were repeating and emphasizing how, how we have to change our attitude. That's really the main and foremost thing. We were saying how this mother-child connection is so strong and so subtle, And the child can feel if the mother has something more important, more interesting in her life. Child will immediately feel it and will feel neglected. Yes, that's how subtle it is. So it's all about consciousness actually and attitude. If the right consciousness, right attitude is not there, it doesn't matter how much we endeavor to do all kinds of fancy programs, but the children will always have this subtle, bitter feeling there of being neglected and pushed aside and so on, yes. And the children will have lasting emotional damages from that. Yes. Okay. So that was basically the main and foremost thing. So let us distribute the materials for lesson number 2. Alona? Also, a couple of people didn't get the materials yesterday. Some people were not there. But you can also get it later, the yesterday's materials. Okay, so lesson number 2, child raising starts at conception, Garbhadan Samskara. Yeah, good to understand, that it starts that early, even long before conception. And we know examples from the Bhagavatam, Prishni and Sutapa, or Kadama Muni and Devahuti, they did prepare themselves, and as a result of that, Krishna himself took birth. But then the other example is Kashyapa Muni and Diti. They conceived at the wrong time and with the wrong attitude, and 2 demons took birth. So very clear, it's not by chance, it's not a coincidence, which soul is attracted. Actually, in one sense, we choose. We get whoever fits to us, type thing. Yes. So, in a nutshell, we can say, following the regulative principles of sex life, then we attract a saintly personality. But in unregulated sex life, we attract personalities with demoniac qualities. Sounds maybe very heavy, but even, just the strong desire for sense gratification is, strictly speaking, a demoniac quality, actually, So, so it is really up to us who we are inviting, type thing. So I still definitely feel this is not strongly emphasized really in ISKCON yet, not so much. Not so much. Recently I spoke to somebody, I can't remember, it was some brahmacharis, either Chaupadi brahmacharis or Bhakti Chuma's disciples, can't remember. And they were saying, actually, I think it was Varnaswami's disciples, they were saying, actually, our Guru Maharaj is asking us brahmacharis to preach about Garbhadan Samskara. Yes. Even brahmacharis should be actually preaching about this. As we were mentioning yesterday, Narada Muni gives so many wise instructions, so why not our brahmacharis, Yes. that's how important this topic really is, you know. Let us read a few quotes here just to get some overview what Prabhupada says about this topic of Garbhadan Samskara. 4:14:42. The pious seminal succession in the twice-born families of the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas especially, as well as in the families of Vaishyas also, must be kept very pure by the observation of the purificatory processes, beginning with Garbhadan Samskara, which is observed before conceiving a child. Unless this purificatory process is strictly observed, especially by the Brahmanas, the family descendants become impure, and gradually sinful activities become visible in the family. Maharaj Anga was very pure because of the purification of semen in the family of Maharaj Dhruva. However, his semen became contaminated in association with his wife, Sunita, who happened to be the daughter of death personified. Because of this polluted semen, King Vena was produced. So, wow, you know, it's a whole scientific thing, very scientific. Another quote, letter to Shamadasi in 69. You have asked me some questions about the functions of sex life in Krishna consciousness, and the basic principle is that it should be avoided as far as possible. However, if it is unavoidable, then it should be utilized only for begetting children, Krishna conscious children. In that case, the husband and wife should chant at least 50 rounds before going to sex. The recommended period is 6 days after the menstruation period. So Prabhupada gets into all the details, practical details, you know. 5:20. The heart is situated within the chest, and although instrumentally the son is born with the aid of the genitals, he is actually born from within the heart. According to the heart's situation, the semen takes the form of a body. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, when one begets a child, his heart should be purified through the ritualistic ceremony known as Garbhadan. Rishabdev's heart was always uncontaminated and spiritual. Consequently, all the sons born from the heart of Rishabdev were spiritually inclined. So very nicely how Prabhupada is explaining, you know, that actually the place of birth is actually the heart. And the genitals are just the instrument, but actually it's the heart, you know, where the person is born from. So, according to the heart's situation, the semen takes the form of a body. 3:20:28. Brahma's mind was not in correct order when he created the demons. It must have been full of passion, because the entire creation was passionate. Therefore, such passionate sons were born. It follows that any father and mother should also be careful while begetting children. The mental condition of the child depends upon the mental status of his parents at the time he is conceived. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the Garbhadan Samskara, or the ceremony for giving birth to a child, is observed. Before begetting a child, one has to sanctify his perplexed mind. Very nicely put, you know, one has to sanctify his perplexed mind. When the parents engage their minds in the lotus feet of the Lord, and in such a state the child is born, naturally good devotee children come. When the society is full of such good population, there is no trouble from demoniac mentalities. So again, Prabhupada so nicely explaining it all, you know. 3:14:38. The conditions for having good progeny in society are that the husband should be disciplined in religious and regulative principles, and the wife should be faithful to the husband. In Bhagavad Gita 7:11, it is said that sexual intercourse according to religious principles is a representation of Krishna consciousness. Before engaging in sexual intercourse, both the husband and the wife must consider their mental condition, the particular time, the husband's direction, and obedience to the demigods. According to Vedic society, there is a suitable, auspicious time for sex life, which is called the time of Garbhadan. Diti neglected all the principles of scriptural injunction, and therefore, although she was very anxious for auspicious children, she was informed that her children would not be worthy to be the sons of a Brahmana. 3:16:35. The living entity takes shelter within the semen of a father, which is injected within the womb of a mother, and with the help of the mother's emulsified ovum, the living entity grows a particular type of a body. In this connection, it is to be remembered that the mind of Kashyapa Muni was not in order when he conceived the two sons Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Therefore, the semen he discharged was simultaneously extremely powerful and mixed with the quality of anger. It is to be concluded that while It is to be concluded that while conceiving a child, one's mind must be very sober and devotional. For this purpose, the Garbhadan Samskara is recommended in the Vedic scriptures. If the mind of the father is not sober, the semen discharged will not be very good. Thus, the living entity, wrapped in the matter produced from the father and mother, will be demoniac, like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. The conditions of conception are to be carefully studied. This is a very great science. Yes. I mean, you know, Prabhupada says it again and again and again. So obviously, you know, it is to be taken seriously. It's a very great science, has to be carefully studied. So it means we have to really train our devotees, you know. Before devotees get married, there should actually be some almost compulsory whole seminar they should go through, you know, just to really deeply understand what this whole Grihastha Ashram is all about, you know. Yes. So now the actual Garbhadan Samskara involves two mantras which are just chanted just before conception. I actually could not find those mantras in that book which I was looking at. I only found the translations. Translation is, the Supreme Father of the universe empowers your womb contemplating ideal progeny. May the Supreme Carpenter fashion the celestial form sanctioned. There's an N business thing, sanctioned. May the Supreme Father carry out the fertilization. And may the Lord, as the supreme maintainer, present a fetus to you, representative of the Lord. O Supreme Mother, fair-armed, presiding over birth, please bestow a child in the womb. O Supreme Mother, voice of the Lord's Vedas, please sanction a child in the womb. O dual celestial physicians, bedecked with lotus garlands, please grant a child with perfect spiritual health. So that's a translation of these two mantras. But see, my understanding is, in many of these things, what we do is we extract the principles. That's actually what Prabhupada did, you know, by saying chant 50 rounds. That's not in any Vedic scriptures or something. So Prabhupada simply extracted the principle, as he was saying, one's perplexed mind should be, you know, in harmony and sober and Krishna conscious. So whatever it takes to achieve that, you know, is good. So Prabhupada's, you know, very simple application and formula was to chant 50 rounds. But in one sense, one actually can do so much more than that, you know. One can really, and it is, even from Ayurvedic point of view, it is recommended, you know, that devotees accept a diet and lifestyle change almost a year before or 6 months before, you know, which are conducive to the Garbhadan Samskara, which means, you know, we want to purify the gross body and we want to purify the subtle body. Even for the mother, good to get rid of all kinds of toxins, because they also actually, when a woman is pregnant, the toxins also somehow enter the child, almost attract the womb there. So a little bit of detoxification is good, is recommended, you know. And then basically the essence is, you know, that we should have the mood of increasing our devotional service, not decreasing. And we understand, yes, we invite a certain soul to take birth within our family. So the principles are that we want to induce a spiritual atmosphere within ourselves and around ourselves. All right? And that can be done in so many different ways. So we want to purify the body and the consciousness by accepting some kind of tapasya, increasing our Shravanam Kirtanam for a certain period of time. That can be taking individual shapes, you know, according to people's inclinations, whatever inspires us, you know, can be reading extra every day Bhagavad Gita or some favorite verses, some favorite prayers, you know, chant extra rounds for a few months or something, you know, so there's room for some individuality. Basically, we should increase physical, emotional, mental and spiritual health before conception and harmonize the mind. Right? So, I mean, you know, in former ages this was maybe done with so many mantras and rituals and this and that. But, you know, many of us these days, it might just be a little too complicated and not so inspiring for people. I once bought this Garbhadan Samskara book and just opening it up, it was just too complicated for me, you know, and I thought, no, forget it, you know. Who will follow this, you know? And I mean, as I'm saying, even Prabhupada had this, you know, approach to it, to saying 50 rounds. And so many devotees say, oh, 50 rounds, sorry, we don't have the time. Oh, well, you know, then you can say, well, if you cannot put a day aside to chant 50 rounds and conceive a child. Oh, well, you know, how much time will you have to bring up your child? This will take so much more sacrifice than just chanting 50 rounds. So, you know, let's be clear in this. If we can't get that together, if it is not important enough for us to actually do that, you know, then how important will be our child then, you know? Yes. Yeah, so I mean, you know, my approach to this is really practical in the sense that we extract the principles and we apply them, you know, in these days now, and that can really be one can put oneself a individual program together there, whatever one feels inspired by, you know. The main thing is really the consciousness, to, you know, purify the perplexed mind there, and really that prayerful mood, that understanding. So this is going to be a serious thing, you know, and I want really a nice preacher or wonderful Vaishnava to enter our family, and I want to try and do my very best for this, and I want to prepare and do some extra tapasya and increase my Shravanam Kirtanam, you know. But how exactly that looks like, no need to make any hard and fast words or something, you know. And I think we also have to clearly understand just the 50 rounds, if we are otherwise completely slack and our sadhana is not good, but just then on the day to chant 50 rounds, well, that's also not going to do the trick, you know, because it is really a question of our status, of our consciousness, you know. Who was it the other day? Somebody told me there was a Kuli Mela, you know, or the Gurukul kids were getting together, and they had this this funny thing. I don't know if it was a joke or whether they did that. They were wearing a badge. I'm a 50 rounder, and just see what came out of it. Well, that's the thing, you know. It's not just a matter of somehow rattling down 50 rounds, you know, but no, you know, we can't cheat Krishna so easily, you know, if otherwise we are not that serious in our spiritual life. And well, the other question is, what's the quality of our rounds anyway? If it's just while doing this and that, wandering around, as Satchidananda Swami says, if they're empty medicine capsules, you know, oh well, then big deal, 50 rounds of empty medicine capsules, you know, not much effect, you know. So it's really much more than just chanting 50 rounds, you know. I mean, I highly recommend to have some whole meditation and prayer there, prayerful mood, you know. And I know some couples, they were actually even in a very personalized way, they were praying, you know, for, yes, a pujari to take birth who will help to worship Radha Madhava or Lord Nrsingadev or something. Or, you know, please, we want a great preacher who goes all over the world and spreads Krishna consciousness, or a Sankirtan devotee, or whatever, you know. So one can even, you know, it's a nice meditation to really personalize it. Of course, ultimately it's up to the sweet will of Krishna, of course. But why not try and attract a certain soul there with certain, you know, inclinations and qualities or something. Then it becomes even more personalized, you know. And the whole thing is not just some dry ritualistic, you know, process, but actually a deep and sweet and prayerful meditation. And yes, and all we can do is show Krishna our serious intention, you know, and then ultimately it is up to him who he sends, you know. Alona, can you double check one more time that really nobody has their children playing outside? Just so we don't get into trouble again. Yes. Prabhuji, you did the Gabadhan the Samskara course. Would you like to share something more about this topic? Something additional?
It's pretty much the principle is what you're talking about. Details in terms of the things that you can do. So you should get blessings from the Vaishnava.
Oh yeah, very true.
On the day.
Yes. Yeah, it's true, even from gurus, strictly speaking, you know. And yeah. Yes. Yes.
You have faith.
Yes.
And then just one person you should. And tell them when. Tonight we're going to go see a child.
Yes. I mean, from a mundane point of view, this would be really embarrassing and so on. You know, nobody would want to do this. But I remember having been in that situation where actually, you know, devotees went around in the community and they requested the blessings and so on. And it's actually a very sweet thing to do, you know, when the whole community is part of it and, you know, kind of excited, okay, let's see, and so on, you know. Yes, and what else?
Well, it's like this, it's like you have to prepare yourself very safe. At least 6 months or something that you are like really trained and of course refrain from any sexual activity and
yes.
Also you should check your health. You should also get a good astrologer who's going to give you the right time. So that's very important to have the right time.
Yes.
And of course, you should create a favorable environment at the time of conception, in terms of where, how the place should be organized.
Yes.
How
Clean.
it should be dressed, how so it should stimulate some. But most important, I just remember, very important, is that the relationship must be very intimate. So it has to be a point where both men and women, they both want a child, so that one person wants, both are wanted, and the relationship without any tension. So there is intimacy there. So there is a friendship, a union there, not just in sexual union or physical union, but it's also in consciousness. So that's very, very important. So therefore, there should not be any fights, not just on the day, but for a while, and on the day the husband and the wife should have very nice. It should be a good time in the relationship.
Yes.
Because all that is going into the child. It says consciousness. So the 50 rounds is definitely prescribed medicine. What is the result that we want to obtain is on this.
That's the point, There's not that much effect of 50 rounds if there's always some tension there and this and that and, Yes. Yes. Yes, so it requires some preparation, some work, Yes.
And there's also mentioned that if it's even days, it's going to be a boy, it's odd days, it's going to be a girl.
Well, what I've heard more is whoever is more prominent there, you know,
But it's also mentioned
Is
that,
it?
yes, from the day the start of the cycle, the lady, the even days. The Prabhupada mentions 12, 14, 16, and I think he says 16th is the best. 16th day is the best for a very strong male child. And all days favor women and favor the female child. So that also.
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, that's what they call it the astrology also. That another thing is that you should be at home. It should not be
somebody else's,
like traveling or on pilgrimage. It should not be on a holiday. So it's many considerations.
One more thing, Janivas Prabhu once told me that the place where it happens is very important. More than the child being born in a place, he seemed to favor the
conception
place. That's more important. So he said like Mayapur kind of place for conception is much better than conceiving elsewhere and delivering the child in Mayapur. I mean, both are good, but he favored this aspect.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because obviously, you know, if you are in Mayapur, there's a good chance, you know, that you're in better consciousness rather than in, you know, somewhere in Berlin or Hong Kong or whatever, you know.
And there were some other details like white sarees for the lady and some flowers, fresh flowers, some flowers on the bed, and so many other details. Yeah.
Also, she should cook a feast, isn't it?
Yeah, and the man should eat rich food.
Sumptuously.
And she should eat a little less that day also.
Sweet rice. The whole science.
Yes.
It's a very nice book. I haven't actually read it yet, but I can send you it's by an Ayurvedic doctor, and it gives you all these technicalities.
What's it called?
I forgot now. I ordered it before I went to the West, and it came. You can order it in Amazon in India. And
It's something with craft, conception as craftsmanship or something?
It's big book, black. India. It came to the Mayapur. Yeah, I can send you the details.
Yes.
It's very good. Give you all health, all these things.
Yes. Yeah, it would be good to include to give me the title so then I can tell people, you know.
It's not that expensive, it's 700 rupees or something. Huh? I paid 700,
Maybe with sending or something.
And must be some devotees I know they did the Payovrata just prior to.
What did they?
Payovrata. They did the Payovrata a little before. They actually.
What does that involve?
This was the fast that Kashyapa Muni taught Aditi
Okay.
before Vamana was born.
Okay.
So it involves fasting and having only milk.
Okay.
And feeding, I think, 2 brahmanas a day and sleeping on the floor. It's a 12-day fast, so you can break it on the 13th day.
Okay.
And sweet rice will be served to the brahmanas, so that's the
Yes.
12 days. And many few people at least I know have confirmed that it's quite effective.
Yes.
Good child and successful. Huh?
Yes.
No, it would be difficult, we don't know.
Yavona Sanskara is a nice idea, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee because which person you're going to get as a child is the person you deserve to get. You deserve to get a child that will put out on many, many lifetimes of previous karma waiting for you. So whatever child comes, the attitude should be that I got to try, do my duty to raise
Yes.
the child.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, Garbhadan Samskara is just the beginning. you know, of the whole child raising process. So naturally it's not a guarantee just by Garbhadan Samskara. If we do the rest, if we are neglectful in the rest, you know, then even Garbhadan Samskara will not bring about a great Vaishnava or something, definitely. But it's a good beginning, you know.
There was one lecture Prabhupada gave, I can't remember exactly where it was, where he says, raising children is extremely, extremely difficult. But at least if you do Garbhadan Samskara, it's much easier.
Okay.
He made that qualification. It's like, you know, no matter what happens, it's going to be difficult. But at least if you do the Garbhadan Samskara, you get some sort of like a food pump. It's like a parent.
I know the devotees who actually did all that, and their children had a problem child.
Maybe, can you imagine how much worse they might have been? Can you imagine how much worse they might have been without the Garbhadan?
Well, that's a good argument. We don't know, you know, what else we would have gotten without it. Maybe a Hiranyaksha or Hiranyakashipu or something, you know. So.
And then subsequently then there was advice of the whole 9 months of a lot of Bhagavatam reading.
Yeah, we're getting there, so we're just at the Garbhadan Samskara now. Yes, but even I have to share, even just chanting 50 rounds, this already really reprograms the whole mind and attitude towards sex life, you know. I remember that for my own marriage, we were for quite some time chanting 50 rounds every month, trying to conceive a child. And it does, you know, program the mind that, well, this is what sex life is there for, you know, for actually conceiving a child. So even if we just do that, it does make a big, you know, transformation to the mind and the consciousness, you know. Yes. Especially if we come from a background, you know, where we had so many relationships before Krishna consciousness or something. So it's very helpful to just reprogram the mind and transform the consciousness, you know. Yes.
So in other words, even if the Garbhadan Samskara doesn't give you a better child, at least you increased your own Krishna consciousness.
That's right, that's right. I mean, that does make oneself, you know, so much more serious, and one gets a whole different attitude towards the whole process of raising children if one makes that endeavor, you know. So, I mean, there's no loss, you know, we can only win. Yes, baby? No, don't know. I mean, here we were reading Prabhupada, you know, explaining 3:16:35. The living entity takes shelter within the semen of a father. So when exactly that happens?
It seems to indicate that this kind of a sanskara is there to bind the soul in that way. I don't know how that can that explanation accommodate this whole procedure if the soul is already there 9 days before.
Well, because in one sense, you know, the whole process is meant to start before, not just on the day or something. And then theoretically it could be. But I mean, 9 days before, I don't know either. I've never heard this. And also, how does the soul know when exactly is the time of conception, you know. So, don't know. Or maybe, I don't know, or is it that the souls are always there in the semen or something? I don't know.
The one for 9 days before.
Huh?
And the one for 9 days before is the one you tested.
Don't know. But in one sense, personally, I feel it's maybe not even that important, you know. I mean, we can make all some gymnastics there with our intelligence, try to understand how it all works and how the soul enters the semen and how and how and how. But, well, you know, don't know if it's so important, you know. There's so many things we can't really conceive and understand, you know. So, how this all works, really, it's just a mysterious process, really, you know. That's all it is, actually, you know, very mysterious, if you really think about it, you know, how a living entity takes birth in different species like that, in the womb of different species of life and so on. Very mysterious process. So for me, you know, we women are pretty simple, so for me that's enough. It's just an inconceivable, mysterious process. Yes, but
and the soul comes from outer space, wherever it came from, and then it captured by the rain.
Yeah, I remember reading that too.
Hits the ground, the soul in a raindrop gets sucked by a plant.
I think grains especially, right?
Grain is eaten by the land, and the soul through that process pulled into the nasty grain, like the whole thing.
Yes, really. I mean, for me, it's just inconceivable. You know? Any other points or comments or questions about that? I mean, really, you know, for those who want to get deeper insights, you know, all I can say is, well, there's a course at the Mayapur Academy about samskaras, and there's maybe some books.
And there is one more book, it's called like which is some idea of some other
What is it called, the book?
It's from Google.
Okay.
Actually, when you do this course, then we'll get the book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I also know one other devotee from South India somewhere, he also put a book together, and it's something with craftsmanship or something. Can't remember, conception as craftsmanship or something like that is the title. And I asked him where to get it, and he said through Amazon in India you can get it.
Actually, those are very interesting for them. I think for their course, you get more information.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, here we can only really briefly touch upon it because it's not really the main and foremost topic of the whole course, you know. Yes. Okay, well then maybe we'll move on to the next topic, meaning child raising continues during pregnancy. So it begins at conception, it continues during pregnancy. So that means, you know, 9 months before the child actually takes birth, there's already actually child raising going on there. So first of all, again, further samskaras can be observed. Again, I'm just briefly mentioning them here. Pumsavana samskara, to beget strong son to carry out specific duties, performed before child begins to move in the womb. And gender is considered to be established thereafter. You know, so that's also a little, at least for me a little contradictory that, you know, we were saying, oh, the even or odd days or something that already determines the gender. But then I've also heard actually there's a certain time during pregnancy when the gender is firmly, you know, established. And there is also, I think there's also some samskaras where you can try and affect that. Right? Oh, that's the one. Here you go. All right. So then Shimantonaya Nayan Samskar performed in the 4th month, or at the latest 6th or 8th months, for protection from subtle entities bringing about miscarriage. Formation of mind begins and heart forms at that time. And from what I understood, those 2 samskars are actually only performed for the first child. For the 2nd or 3rd one is not doing those. That's what I've read. Then Shosayanti Samskar performed in the 10th month for the safe delivery. And then after birth it continues with Namakarana Samskar, name-giving ceremony. So as we were mentioning yesterday, there's 10 altogether, right? So, but yes, let's first of all clearly understand, in pregnancy already, the child really catches the consciousness of the mother. Because this is an interesting thing to understand, how consciousness is such a powerful energy permeating the whole body, keeping every single cell of the body alive. It's consciousness. And just to illustrate to you how consciousness works, I want to share this one pretty interesting little story. Maybe I've told it in previous courses, but most of you were not here then. I have one good friend in Australia. We were brahmacharinis together 30 years ago. And a couple of years ago, she came to Mayapur and we were talking, oh, you know, what are you doing, what am I doing? So she's got, meanwhile, 4 children, 4 sons, and her husband came to the point where he had a kidney failure. And she donated one of her kidneys to him. Could the kids be a touch quieter there? Yes, so the husband had a kidney failure, so she donated one of her kidneys to him. So then after the surgery, this little funny incident happened, because in her family, she is the only one who has some strong liking for chocolate. Nobody else eats chocolate in the family, but she has this attachment to chocolate, and she had her secret chocolate stash there in one drawer. So, and then shortly after the surgery, her husband came home from hospital, and she had this craving for chocolate. She goes to the drawer and it's empty. So she was wondering, what's happening? Where did my chocolate go? So she asked her husband, you got any idea where the chocolate went? And he was all embarrassed, saying, yeah, somehow it overcame me and I had such cravings for chocolate and I pinched it and I ate it all. So then they were thinking, oh well, maybe this is connected with a kidney transplantation. And then in the next checkup, they told the doctor that story. And he was laughing and saying, yes, we know that. That's a well-known fact. Whenever we transplant an organ, for some time, the person receiving the organ has the same tastes and cravings as the person who donated it. And then he was saying, well, it seems like organs can remember things, which is of course nonsense. Organs cannot remember things, you know, but this doctor didn't understand the power of consciousness, you know. So her kidney was flooded with chocolate consciousness. And when he received that kidney, he could feel it for some days. I can't remember, a week or 10 days or something. Until, his new kidney was flooded with some different consciousness, Yes. And I thought it was quite an amazing story, It's really a medical proof of the power of consciousness, And meanwhile, I've met other devotees who told me similar things. One devotee told me how his child had a bone marrow transplantation. And he was saying it affected the child for a whole year. Because, in the kidney situation, both are devotees. They were only talking about chocolate or not chocolate or something. But who knows what that person was up to who gave the bone marrow, And the child, his consciousness was much more, fragile and not fixed, So the child's consciousness was strongly affected for a whole year, So, yes, once we understand that, how really consciousness floods the whole body, it's there in every cell, in every organ, because that's what consciousness, that's what keeps the cells alive. Even in regards to transplanting organs, has to be done very quickly, because if an organ is disconnected from the source of consciousness, meaning the spirit soul, then after an hour or 2 hours or something, the cells die, So understanding that, of course, the child, if a kidney gets the chocolate consciousness, what to speak of a child? There's a whole separate living entity there, with its own metabolism, and then, in the 7th month, the child is becoming more conscious and moves around. So of course, mother's consciousness is flooding the whole body, completely affecting the child, completely. So good to be very clear about this. It makes it very clear how important it is that the mother is in a very, harmonious and stable and joyful and Krishna conscious mood. No stress, no arguments, no tension, all this. Child will feel everything, every single emotion the child will feel. So very, very important, Also, another interesting little story I experienced, which really shook me up. It really blew my mind. The same doctor there, which I mentioned, he put a book together about conception as craftsmanship or something. He once came to our devotee care committee, and he made a little presentation there. And his wife was sharing during her pregnancy, every single day she was chanting the first 5 chapters of Bhagavad Gita aloud, Sanskrit, just chanting it every day for 9 months, every day. So, and at that time, her boy was 5, and she was sharing, without any further training, if they chant these chapters and stop anywhere, he knows the next verse. Just by hearing in the room. Wow, I was blown out, it made such an impression on me. Of course, we all know, yes, Prahlad Maharaj here heard in the room, and yes, it's in the Bhagavatam. But I have to admit, I did not take it that seriously. I thought, oh yeah, of course Prahlad Maharaj would hear in the room, of course he would, And yes, it's all in the Bhagavatam. But I just didn't think that it's really taking place today also. I was so impressed. And I was immediately thinking, wow, just let's imagine if we really train our ladies in these things, then being a mother becomes a whole transcendental adventure, it becomes an amazing service once we understand all these deep and important details, Yes, I mean, it really blew my mind. It really did. Yes. So, yes, child can hear, Yes. Child hears everything, feels everything, develops consciousness after 7 months, Child feeds every emotion of the mother, accepts her consciousness. And I actually have met also mothers who said to me, yes, when I was pregnant with that child, I was really absorbed in deity worship, I was doing puja, I was teaching the girls in puja, and yes, the child is, really attracted to puja, So like that you can really sow the seeds there already in the womb, You can really affect the child to such large extent, Yes. So I mean, no wonder, let us, think of, non-devotees who have no clue about these things, who do all kinds of stuff in their pregnancy. Of course, the doctors always say, yes, you should not smoke, you should not drink, it's not good for the child. Oh well, but what about all these subtleties? There's no understanding about these things. And many women go through so many tribulations in their pregnancy, so much tension and arguments, and already divorce while the child is in the womb, and oh my God, so no wonder that people are so disturbed these days, because this knowledge is just not at all there, it's completely lost and forgotten, Yes, but we devotees, we are so lucky, we have access to it, and we can really apply it. And all right, we don't want to make anybody feel bad who didn't really apply these things or something. Well, if you're still young enough, have another go and do it better this time, Or if it's too late for that, well then train your children, train other devotees, pass it on, let the next generation do it better, Yes, we should not, be eaten up by guilt feelings now that we didn't know so many things. Oh well, we made so many mistakes in the previous lives, unlimited mistakes we have made in those lives. So all right, let's not be too, sorry about it, but let's just do whatever we can to inspire others to do it better than we did, No harm in that, Yes, and of course, child is affected by her eating. I mean, everybody who's gone through pregnancy knows this, that in pregnancy we shouldn't eat so spicy foods and this and that, and. Yeah, so mother has to be conscious of her thinking, feeling, eating and acting to favor the child's development. It's a whole thing for 9 months. She has to be very conscious. And she can be only conscious of that if she prepares before. So it's a whole big preparation work there. Unless we are really preparing beforehand, then we will struggle in our pregnancy to, be really in such good consciousness and balanced and in harmony and. So really, that makes it very clear how important it is to start a year before, or at least 6 months, Yeah. So, and Father gives protective support to the pregnant mother, makes sure that she's physically comfortable, emotionally stable, and intensely Krishna conscious. So that's the father's role there, husbands. That he gives that support and stability and helps her physically and give special care, and usually husband shouldn't leave his pregnant wife behind somewhere alone or something, I remember just last summer, one devotee from Delhi, he actually wanted to come with Bhakti Pushdam Swami to Ukraine to the big festival. He had already arranged his visa, everything, but then he said, oh, my wife is pregnant, I cannot leave her alone, So he cancelled the whole trip, didn't go, So that's actually the right mood, That the father also should be, or the husband, should be, very well aware, of the importance that his wife is really stable and in harmony and under no special tension and pressure, and so he can immensely contribute to that, So that's his part in it, Yes.
Can I read something from Srila Prabhupada in relation to what you just said about made so many mistakes, so we can do better?
Okay, good.
So, something is dropped in the water, in the river. You cannot see the things dropped within the water by agitating the water. Just stand still for some time. As soon as the water is settled up, you'll see the things as they are. So as soon as our enthusiasm is agitated, it is better to sit down in any temple suitable and chant Hare Krishna. There is no question of being disappointed. After all, we commit so many mistakes. That is human nature. To err is human. That is not false. But try to rectify with cool head.
With cool head. Okay, very nice. Where's that from?
Lecture given in Calcutta January 27, 1970.
So how did you find that so quickly?
It just happened to be something that had been sent to me recently.
Okay. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, We've made so many mistakes. That's why we're still here, So we can't be too, caught up in some, feeling all depressed and so now let's make it better and let's help others to make it better, That's the main thing. Yes, and then later, as we discussed, how the consciousness floods the whole body, mother's consciousness is transferred through the milk. Yes, yes. Very clear, if the consciousness is in every cell and it's in the kidney, then of course also in the milk. So by feeding the child, the mother actually gives that consciousness to the child. And I have had one situation, I was visiting one family, where the wife really had a tough time. She was really on edge and agitated and she was really struggling, 2 little children. And she even observed it herself. She said, when I breastfeed my child in the evening, the child wakes up like that in the morning, how I feel. Just screaming, being on the edge, agitated. It was really like that. I stayed with them for 1 week, and my God, I could also really see, the connection, how it really works, how it affects the child, how the child out of no reason just made all these tantrums and screamed already in the early morning, And while I was there, I didn't even say anything, but somehow the mother realized it herself. She said, actually, yes, my child sounds like I feel. And it comes through me and through the breastfeeding, and not only the breastfeeding, of course, but also just, through the close connection of the child to the mother. So the mother feels everything there, and if she is all on edge and agitated, of course the child will capture the same mood and consciousness, Yes. Yeah, so I mean, like the doctors always say, yes, through the breastfeeding, the child gets the same immune system, That's why we often say, while a child is very small, not so risky to travel, come to India with a child, because the child has the same immune system like the mother through the milk. But they only talk about that, you know, they don't talk about more subtle things of actually the consciousness, you know, that they don't know. They only talk about immune system or something, you know. Yes. Yeah, so, and I added here, mother's milk is most important element. Her milk is the love of her heart for her child. You know, similar like with a cow too. You know, actually cow's love transforms into milk she gives, you know, so a similar thing there is with the mother. Love transforms her blood into milk. And children can drink milk up to 4 or 5 years of age, you know, very often. Mothers are still breastfeeding, you know. Yeah, so it's a whole thing, you know, really understanding how consciousness really floods and permeates the whole body and how deeply the child is affected by it. So once we more deeply understand this, it becomes very clear how we have to prepare and what a serious thing it is to be pregnant and you know. Okay, do we have any question about that? Yes, please.
Regarding the child can hear it like a womb.
Yeah.
When my first child, I did the Bhagavad Gita, the whole Bhagavad Gita, the Sanskrit and the translation every day.
Okay, wow. The whole Bhagavad Gita every day?
Every day. I was really...
For 9 months?
For 9 months.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then for my 4 other children, I couldn't, because I couldn't do it. But I took the technology, I put a tape, and I put the tape on and then bend it up, and I put it on every night. I say that, I put it on
And did you feel some effect there? Do the children know the verses better than others or something?
I didn't feel that way, but I have to say that my children are Krishna consciousness so far, so I don't know if that was, you know,
Yes.
but really, my son was, you know, they really spiritually inclined very much, so
Yes.
it's a good way to really, you know,
Yes.
use it.
Yes, wow. I mean, you're the first mother who actually did such a thing, who I have met, you know. Whole Bhagavad Gita every day. That takes quite a few hours, you know. At least. I mean, I know on Gita Jayanti we chant all the verses. I mean, I think that takes more than 2 hours, doesn't it? And that's only the Sanskrit. So if you read the translation too, that takes quite a bit of time. That's pretty glorious, you know, to be able to have that determination to do it every day. Wow, amazing. Yes, so I'm sure the children got something out of it, you know. Yes, very nice. Yes?
Concerning the Prabodhana Samskar, it looks like when someone is going for that samskara, they're praying to have a son. I mean, should the mood be to really just to focus to have a son and ask Krishna to give a son? That's one point. The second is, as a devotee, I learned that we should ask Krishna what's his plan. If his plan is for a soul in a female body to come in our womb and continue her progress. So that's second point. Third is, what if the consciousness is to have a son and go through all these Garbhadana samskar and end up having a daughter?
I mean, see, I'm not so expert in these things, but as far as I understand, the Garbhadana samskar is not specifically directed towards having sons, isn't it? No. No, I didn't find anything in Prabhupada's books about that, you know. Prabhupada only explains in several purports, you know, that if a man is stronger and the fluids of a man is more than it will be male child. If the woman is more prominent in sexual intercourse and her fluids are more, then it will be a female child. So, but the Garbhadan samskara as such is not the main goal that it is a son. No. Simply that we try and attract and invite an elevated soul, I think it's more maybe, I hope you don't mind me saying it, but it's more like a Hindu thing, that people want sons, and that it's almost an embarrassment if it's not a son or something. It even is connected with the daughters. They have to give, a dowry, more expensive to have daughters. You have to give the dowry, you have to pay the wedding and all this. So people want sons, and they take over the business and take care of the parents and I think there's more such kind of considerations which are a little mundane, And I would recommend devotees not to, as you were saying yourself, better to leave it up to Krishna, And all right, maybe we can say, if you so desire, we want a son, we want a daughter, whatever. But let's leave it up to Krishna, Because we know we need also, elevated and Krishna conscious ladies, in the man-woman course we were discussing how we women play such an important role. We are like the backbone of whole humanity. So why not get a few, chaste and spiritually powerful ladies, We need that too, And I know also quite a few devotees, they didn't even do any ultrasound checkup. They didn't even want to know what is the gender of the child. They're not so attached to only having this or that gender. This is also a little, it can be disappointing, and then it disturbs the relationship to the child or something. I've heard stories like this where in ultrasound it looked like it would be a boy, but then it wasn't, And then the parents completely disappointed and no. That just only invites some negativity there, So let's leave it up to Krishna, Yes.
I know one very senior Prabhupada disciple, Mataji, who had 3 children, all extremely Krishna conscious. But one of the children, she specifically remembers and gives classes about it sometimes, that she prayed for a preacher. And I want a preacher, someone who's going to help push on Srila Prabhupada's movement. And that child just happened to be born in a female body. But from very birth, that child, female or not, absolute pure devotee. I've known this child since she was very young, never performed one single action for one single moment that wasn't in pure devotional service.
Wow.
So gender means nothing when it comes to producing devotee children.
Yes. So there you go. Yes.
But I heard that for the first child, it's very auspicious in the family to have a son. There's 2 reasons. It's for one reason is because later on the mother will have shelter from her son, she will be able to carry on in the family. And the second one is that if girls come after, that they will learn to be trained to serve a male, just
Okay.
be able to respect and see,
Yes. Yes. All right. Yeah, I remember my mother telling she had an older brother, and she was saying how nice it was, as a girl to have an older brother, and he would protect her and take her here and there and would take care of her and so on, And she was very attached to her brother and so on, So it's, yeah.
I think from my family, my son is the one who guided the girls, my daughters, and especially if something's wrong, we will ask him, they try out.
Yes. So it's nice. Yes. But then again, we can't be too disappointed if it's not like this, you know. Prabhu, did you have your hand up?
I was going to say that there was a few occasions that Prabhupada expressed that he wanted boys. Some letters to some of his disciples, he wanted children with male body.
That his disciples would get them, or he as a grihastha wanted?
So that his disciples would get male.
Well, I guess, you know, because they are the ones who, you know, take charge and push on and so on. That's meant to be the role of those in male bodies, you know. It's a fact, you know. Yes.
Actually, Mataji, last year we taught from the Sanskrit bit. So I'm looking to mention in the class there is a certain rules and regulations according to the Sanskrit education. But if you want a male child, there is some criteria there, those regulations there in the UK.
All right. Some rules and regulations, whatever that may be.
But it has to do with the day of conception.
Yeah.
Is mainly the day of conception, apart from what we said about who is stronger, what is the karma of the person, it's many factors. If you want to have a male child, you should not have union on a certain day.
Okay.
Some people have the karma, they're going to get a boy, so they're going to get again, you know, it's like, so it's going to be difficult to override that. Right?
Yes, yes.
It's many factors, it's not like a...
But then again, didn't Prabhupada also say that there is always more girls than boys, you know, because in general often the women are more lusty and stronger or something, you know? So, yeah, it must be a mixture of so many factors, which is not just one thing and then you get a boy or something, you know?
And if the men are older, that also mentioned. If they are older,
Then what?
if the father is old,
Yes,
then the chance of having
a girl or a boy?
more.
Huh?
Having a girl is more
Because then he's not so
strong.
strong and prominent there. Yeah, so many things. Yes, Prabhu.
What was affecting one of the devotees started chanting Hare Krishna. He has so many expectations. I'm going to have a wonderful life. You know, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. And then...
Then the bitter awakening comes.
So we cannot force Krishna
No.
or utilize Krishna or make Krishna our part of supplier.
Yes.
But the attitude we have is whatever Krishna does is actually good for me.
Yes.
It's like not getting what I want.
Exactly. Sometimes we just need to have our hopes and plans smashed, you know. Sometimes that's what we need, you know. Otherwise we get too proud or carried away or something. So yeah, I mean, it's a fact. Krishna knows exactly what we need for our purification, you know. Very true. Yes.
Yeah, another thing that Guru was teaching the course, he said that, you know, when they planned for the second child, there was more day on the calendar that they could conceive a boy. You know, so even before they conceived, they were more or less kind of knowing that it would be a girl.
Okay.
And, because of the, you know, you're traveling, you have to be in a place, there's so many factors.
And also the whole cycle of the wife and...
So they thought it's okay, well, let's have a girl. You know, they had a girl, but it's a wonderful Vaishnavi. So,
Yes, I mean, that's the thing. We can't be too hung up about it and trying to calculate and, you know, manipulate and work it all out. And, you know, so, all right, we can do something, but let's leave it also up to Krishna, you know. Yes. Okay.
At the same time, Krishna helps those who help themselves. So he told Arjuna, you fight, you're going to win with my help, but don't sit down in the chariot and just leave it all up to me.
Yes.
You fight. So
Yes.
we do what we can. We
Exactly.
aim to resolve it to Krishna, but not that we can just say, yeah, you know, we
Yes.
can do it all. Just
Yes. We try our best and Krishna does the rest. Okay, well maybe before we continue, let's take our 10-minute break. Shall we do that? Okay, good. 10-minute break. Yeah, I mean it is a pretty interesting topic. Of course, we were discussing giving and accepting shelter. Yes, that's a very good introduction to the whole topic of culture, because in materialistic culture nobody wants to give shelter, nobody wants to take shelter. Whereas in spiritual culture, giving and accepting shelter is the natural foundation for any more meaningful relationship. There's always somebody giving shelter, somebody taking shelter. Otherwise it's small talk. It's a Haribol relationship. You know? I'm sure we can all imagine what a Haribol relationship is. I'm sure we've got plenty of them. Where we just say, oh Haribol, nice to see you, okay, yeah, what are you doing? Haribol, Haribol. You know, but nothing more deeper and more meaningful than that. You know? Yes. Yeah, so this giving and accepting shelter, this having a mentor, having a counselor, having a confidential, well-wishing friend who has no other interest except helping us in our spiritual growth. No managerial interest, no emotional interest, no financial interest. Simply my spiritual development, nothing else. That's of the greatest importance. You know? If we have such relationships with somebody who is more experienced, we can save ourselves making so many mistakes. You know, so many mistakes we could really save ourselves if we would just be more willing to take guidance of people who are more experienced. You know? But often we want to work it all out ourselves, and we have to go through the school of hard knocks and learn the hard way. And yeah, actually not so intelligent. Better to really take guidance of somebody who's got more experience. You know, and especially in parenting. This is also there, you know. We can get so many good tips and information and you know. Yeah. Parenting is most effective in partnership, obviously, you know. We will talk about this more tomorrow or so. You know, the mood of the mother, the mood of the father. They are contributing certain flavors there and aspects, you know. They're not interchangeable. So naturally a child, to a healthily and in a balanced way to develop and grow, he or she needs both moods. You know, not just the mother or not just the father. And father cannot play the mother, mother cannot play the father and mother or something. But no, both are meant to bring in their mood, their flavor, their role. And that's the most effective way, obviously, to, you know, bring up a child. And it is more relaxed and joyful for the parents and for the children, you know, for everybody involved. Right? And then children are more cooperative and more inspired. Yes. I remember this also from my own childhood, that really, you know, if my mother was always there for us, she did so many amazing things for us, with us. My father was also so there for us, and we just felt, or especially I felt like that I wanted to please them, I wanted to reciprocate, you know. So I cannot even remember that my parents ever had to really push me or this or that. No, it's the natural reciprocation if the child receives love from the parents in care and attention, and really that the children are the center there in the family, then the child wants to reciprocate, wants to please the parents. And I always had this mood, I didn't want to disappoint my parents. That was my motivation to do anything. In school, studying and music lessons and this and that, I simply wanted to please my parents because they gave us so much, you know, so that's actually the natural reciprocation, really. Isn't it? Yes, yes. So then there was that mood of cooperation and you know, yeah, pleasing the parents and being inspired to be active and responsible and all that. Yes.
My Guru was a Gurukul teacher in the old days when Prabhupada was still around, and he got so many of the young kids, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, that were sent from all over the world away from their parents at that age, and he was taking care of them, and he was doing his best as a brahmachari to take care of all these young kids. But their parents were telling them, and the other teachers in the school were telling them, that, you know, you're 5 years old now. You can't be selfish. You have to give up your ego. I mean, really like treating them like adults. And he said most of those kids now, very difficult for them to make any connection to Krishna consciousness or even any other people, because what happens is that they don't become filled with the security, that they don't get their free will. Krishna isn't given to them as a choice early on. So later on, even if they do take up Krishna consciousness, they struggle so much because it was forced on them. It's not something that they had a choice to do. It's just an imposition upon their consciousness from an early age. Whereas if you give a child, and he says this over and over, if you give a child, you know, all the love and attention and make them the center and make them basically God of the family, then later on, when they become teenager or young adult, they can choose whether or not they want to be in Maya or they want to be Krishna conscious. And then it becomes real. Whereas otherwise, even if they accept Krishna consciousness, they will struggle with it more so even than those of us that grew up as eating karma.
Yeah, I mean, we will get eventually to all these points, because one can do so many mistakes with best intention. You know, parents might have the best intention, but because, you know, there's no training and you know, not understanding the psychology of the child at certain stages in life, and you know, the best intention can, you know, produce all kinds of unfavorable results there, you know.
He also said he's grateful to that generation of parents that showed what is the result of this kind of behavior and this kind of raising. So therefore we can learn by hearing and not by doing ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
So not make the same mistake.
Yeah, very true. Another point, of course, is, you know, that we should not neglect the partner over the children. This is also one thing which has to be nicely balanced. You know, not that the husband feels neglected because all the attention goes to the children, or the wife feels neglected because the attention goes to the children. So it's, as everything in Krishna consciousness, it is a matter of balancing everything very nicely. And that's why, you know, we also do need the advice of others who can see more objectively if we have the right balance. Because that's the point, as long as we have material desires, material attachments, we actually can't assess ourselves objectively. We can't see clearly, you know, where we are at. And that's why we need, you know, somebody who can help us see how our practice is and if things are balanced and. Because again, you know, we might have a good intention, but it might be imbalanced and we don't even realize. We think it's all Krishna conscious and we're doing the proper thing, And we don't even realize, that actually we are neglecting somebody there, Husband and wife relationship is primary and impacts relationship between parent and children. Yes. This husband and wife relationship, so important. That's, that the mood filters down here. Affection and care between husband and wife filters down through the whole family and affects the children. If there's harmony, affection, care, caring attitude, good communication, that whole mood filters down. And it affects the children. Right? Same in a yatra too. If there's harmony, and stability and good communication and caring, affectionate attitude between the leaders, between the seniors, filters down. Whole yatra benefits from it. But if there's all tension and politics and power games going on there on higher levels, same thing, then that filters down, Yes. Yeah, so not easy. That's why really this man-woman course is the foundation to it, because there we get into all the details, what is man's mind, man's ego, how is it built, and how the wife is the auspicious source of energy and inspiration to the man. That's Prabhupada's definition almost. What's the role of woman? She's meant to be the inspiration and the auspicious source of energy to the men. So we women have very powerful energy, and depending how we use it, we can bring the very best out of a man, spiritually and materially, really inspire him to his very best. Or if we compete and always try to dominate and instruct and tell him what to do and show that we actually know better, we can completely block him and disempower him and almost ruin his life. We were all discussing that in the man and woman course, very important thing, Yes. There's really, we find the answers to the questions why we have such a high divorce rate. It's in that course. Yes. So while we don't have that knowledge very clearly, it will be almost impossible to really create this harmony in our family, Yes. So, and simply living high thinking is a good environment for raising children. That was also one of our secrets of success there of married life. Last week we discussed this simply living high thinking formula, and we were discussing what it takes to really practice it, and so we just don't have the time to go into this all again. But the courses are filmed, they are available as YouTube films on the Desire Tree website, also on my website. So, or next year you do the other courses too. Whatever you missed out this time. And maybe we read these quotes and then we see if there's any comments or questions. Bhagavatam 1:12-30. Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord, like Maharaj Pariksit. One may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Pariksit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother, but even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to be so. There is a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances of a neighboring temple of Radha Govinda. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, I again revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression, which was developed later into regulative devotional service by his divine grace. Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others. So very nice how Prabhupada shares this, in the Bhagavatam from his own childhood there. And then we have a couple of letters. Letters to Satyabhama Dasi, 23rd of March 73. Why should the parents not feel attachment for their children? That is natural. But our affection is not simply sentimental. We offer our children the highest opportunity to become trained up in Krishna consciousness very early, so as to assure their success in this life, to go back to Godhead, for sure. That is real affection, to make sure my child gets back to Godhead. That is my real responsibility as parent. Yes, so, affection within family life, we also discussed that last week. Yes, it is the glue that keeps the family together. Of course, it has to be there. It's not Maya or something, But the affection should not be sentimental, just affection for the sake of affection or something. But no, we use that affection in that sense that we connect it with this high goal of really giving that child the best opportunity to go back to God in this lifetime. That's real affection. What's the use of pampering a child there and fulfilling any whimsical desire or something which will entangle him and to take birth again? No, that's not real affection. Right? Real affection is really to give the child the best opportunity to make it home back to God. Parents' affection means to give faith and enthusiasm to the child to practice Krishna consciousness. Yes. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, faith is the currency with which we can purchase Krishna. So if the parents instill that faith in the child, like senior devotees have to instill that faith in younger devotees, in the process of Krishna consciousness, and the enthusiasm to practice sincerely, then the conditioned soul has a good chance to make it home. Letter to Arundhati, famous one, also 72. I am simply surprised that you want to give up your child to some other persons, even they are also devotees. For you, child worship is more important than deity worship. If you cannot spend time with him, then stop the duties of pujari. At least you must take good care of your son until he is 4 years old. And if after that time you are unable anymore to take care of him, then I shall take care. Prabhupada saying. These children are given to us by Krishna. They are Vaishnavas, and we must be very careful to protect them. These are not ordinary children. They are Vaikuntha children. And we are very fortunate we can give them chance to advance further in Krishna consciousness. That is very great responsibility. Do not neglect it or be confused. Your duty is very clear. So, I mean, I don't know the exact circumstances, but it looks like, some mother wanted to, well, maybe it was just for babysitting or something. I'm not sure what exactly it is, involved there. Whether it is just a few hours per day, some babysitting, or more permanently or something, I don't know. But yes, Prabhupada's answer is very clear. For you, child worship is more important than deity worship. So that's the whole thing, which we already mentioned yesterday also. That the service of being mother, especially for the first few years, is the most important service. We should not think, deity worship is more important, and actually just last week I gave one invitation to this course. I gave that to one mother who has a little child, and she said, this is my Harinam, I have to go in Harinam, I can't come to the course. And I was saying to her, no, your most important service is your child. Harinam will go on with you, without you, no problem. But you have to hear how to bring up your child. This is most important service, Yes. And she made big eyes, maybe I was the first one who told her that or something, Yes. Yes, and I mean, I know Radha Swami, he doesn't allow his female disciples to do any morning service in the temple, any morning puja or something, if they have children 5 years or less of age. He doesn't allow. Yes, because he knows what happens. Child wakes up early in the morning, the mother is on the altar dressing the deities, and the child feels abandoned, Not a good experience for a small child, Yes. As we were saying, as soon as the mother feels there's something more important, something more interesting than the child, being a mother, child feels it. Yes. So that's what it means to be a mother. All other activities have to take the back seat for these, at least for these first few years, Then when the child goes to school, and then she's a bit more free or something, Yeah, so also, this expression, Vaikuntha children, of course it doesn't mean that all those children come straight from Vaikuntha or something. That's how I understand it anyway. That's not what Prabhupada is saying. But he simply wants to express that they're very special souls. They do continue from previous lifetime, They're not ordinary children. They're special children, continue. Being maybe much more advanced than we are, Yes. So therefore they deserve, special care, special protection, special attention, and so that's why Prabhupada ends. That is a great responsibility. Do not neglect it or be confused. Your duty is very clear. And Prabhupada saying, if you can't take care of the child after 4 years, then I will take care. Okay, so about this topic of creating a good environment for raising children. Are there any more comments, questions? Yes, Mataji?
I'm thinking about very ideal. I know a lot of parents were divorced with young children, it seems like
fell in the well.
Yes,
Well, she's saying this always seems to be such an ideal situation, and there's so many families, where the parents are divorced, single mothers, and so, and already just seeing it breaks one's heart. So what to do? Well, all we can do is give systematic training and education, And I dare say, as long as we don't deeply understand these topics which we discuss in the Man-Woman course, there will be always divorce. There we find the answers. There we find the answers. And Prabhupada puts it all in the Bhagavatam. It's all there. It's all there. But somehow it takes so long for us to be open and willing to accept and hear. So what to do? What to do? But my solution is simply education, training. So of course, if people are already in that situation, what to do? All you can do is try your best somehow, But ideally, yes. I mean, I'm so idealistic. I do want to strive for the ideal. Otherwise, what's the use of, being in Krishna consciousness if we don't have that faith and conviction that if we actually apply what Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam, it is possible to reach the ideal. All right, Prabhupada was apparently saying it will take 10 generations. So it will take time from generation to generation. And this is just a tiny, humble attempt to somehow get this education out into the world, because there has not been much preparation and education, even just for entering married life. People just get married and no preparation. I remember how I got married. There was zero preparation, nothing. In those days there was even no seminars about Grihastha ashram or something. Absolutely nothing. That was 89. There was even no Bhakti Shastri course there, nothing, in those days. I didn't even have a Bhakti program. Even that wasn't established. But gradually we have to, give more education, and people have to understand. That's why last course we started, the whole discussion about marriage, we started that in materialistic culture the whole outlook of a married life is something completely different than in spiritual culture. Completely different. In material life it's just romance and love and sense gratification and sex life. Oh, I've fallen in love. But in spiritual life it's something completely different. It's all about purifying duties and supporting each other in spiritual progress and the compatibility and so, but there's not that much training really, And people just meet somebody somewhere and get together, and then they realize, oh, we are not compatible, we don't have the same mood in practicing Krishna consciousness, and then they separate, and it's all, just no systematic training. And then that outcome we get, Yes, because we are taking that mundane conditioning, what the man-woman relationship is all about, And another result also we get that people think, yes, this man-woman relationship is all about sense gratification and sex life, so I don't want that in my spiritual life, all right, I don't get married. This is another misconception, because people don't realize, no, hang on, in spiritual practice, marriage has a whole different outlook and purpose, It's all about getting purified. It's a whole purifying journey, becoming humble, learning to dissolve the ego. That's what married life is all about. So it's a completely different outlook, So there's still so many misconceptions there. you know. And that's why we get, you know, all these unfavorable situations, not the stability there. You know, that's the whole thing, that spiritual culture is Krishna's culture, it's Krishna's system to help us to have stability and harmony in our life. You know, so we are stable, we are grounded, and then we can wholeheartedly develop our relationship with Krishna. And we can give our children a good chance. But as long as we are, you know, living in you know, unfavorable conditions, unstable, you know, single motherhood, we have to earn money, we have to bring up our child, and my God, you know, how can we have a peaceful mind to get on deeper levels of chanting, you know? So that's why, you know, these my two themes, the spiritual culture and the holy name, they actually complement each other very nicely, because the spiritual culture forms the foundation to get on deeper levels of chanting, you know? Yeah. Yes, but it is interesting to also understand that really, you know, in the last 50 years, Kali Yuga has just progressed so much. You know, it's not that long ago that even in a country like Germany, you know, family life was much more stable 50, 60, 70 years ago. You know? Yes. And it's just Kali Yuga, because of this whole propaganda of sense gratification being the all in all, and sex life being it in life, you know, and the whole degradation, you know, progresses so fast, and it affects life on so many different levels, you know. So my answer is always education, you know. What else to do? You know? And try our very best to somehow adjust situations and you know, so that devotees have stability in their life, you know. Yeah. Sorry, I'm always looking more this way than that way. Maybe I have to move my chair a little bit or something, at least in the last 10 minutes. Sorry, I'm neglecting the main side here a little bit. Yes, please.
So, talking about education, okay, so what I want really would like to get to is that in Srila Prabhupada's books and what we have had already, information that gives direction as to what the women, ladies should be in relation to the men. If the men is spiritual, things like that, you know. So I'm just thinking personal experience and seeing couples in my temple where we were just under so much pressure, having to have family life and also having to serve the temple, the deeds, and all these things. You know, and that created a lot of tension, you know, couple. So we have that. I read addressed this question to you with photos. Not much you can do, but I would like to get, I don't know, something, when you put a ladies here, what do you feel a man's position should be? Because personally, you know, I see the children get affected. You know, I lived it. You know, I'm very thankful, and thank God my two sons are stable. They have a very nice relationship with their wife. Very good. Still always good. But the scars must be there, you know, when they went to see me and my ex-wife and all this arguments and like that. So what I want to get to was, what do you think the position, what would change the heart of a lady if a man reacts to the ability? Like we said, that the man, if the woman is submissive, slowly he will get it.
See, I don't think it's such a good discussion because most of them have not taken that course, you know. So they don't have the insights, you know.
Well,
And we are really going back now to the man-woman course. And I don't really...
I don't know. It seems like we could get one of the answers right now.
All right, I mean, it's the last 10 minutes. All right.
You did cover a lot of the stuff in this course that we did back.
No, I only touched upon, you know, very briefly, but unless you do the whole course, you know, I mean, we say it all the time, not to take things out of context.
You also said better late than
Huh?
never. You also said better late than never.
No, but no, what I'm saying is better late than never means to do the whole course better late than never. But now what we're doing is we're taking things out of context because most of the ladies have not taken the course.
But
You know?
regardless, even if they haven't taken the course, they might have some realization as to how a lady, when a husband assumes a certain position in an argument, what changes their heart to cool off and not eating.
I have something to say about the topics now. I have something to say about the topic today.
Okay.
I've been married for 40 years, so
Yes.
maybe I should.
About which topic today? Back to the children or back to the...
About what we discussed today.
Okay.
What
Creating the favorable environment. Okay.
That means that what I presented is
Yeah.
say something else.
Yeah.
You're going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, answering the question we had, there's so many divorces.
Yes.
Well, if you want to raise a child, you can't be divorced. If you raise a child when you are divorced, automatically it's against the Vedic injunction. So, the goodness and the progressive wellness of a child start when the parents stay together, they don't divorce. If they're not at that point yet, well, okay, like you said, they need indication, but let's say we are at that point, and we are taking care of children, we don't divorce. So, what I noticed in my 40 years of being married and raising 5 children is that the children will respond to home means security and shelter. That's what people are looking for because we have body demand, eating, sleeping, depending. So basically we're here to focus, are these needs being met or not? If they're not met, it's not a shelter, it's not a home.
Yes.
So the parents, throughout their whole life, they must provide material shelter, emotional shelter, spiritual shelter. It must all be there. Otherwise, there's no security for the child to develop. So even if you're not good at it, even if you're not perfect as a partner with your beloved one, even if there's arguments and sometimes maybe a little bit of screaming and yelling and being worse than that sometimes, if you stay together and every day you provide the meals, every day the home is there, every day there is a shelter, the medical shelter is there. If that is there, it's okay. They'll tolerate their parents being a little immature or whatever. They can tolerate because they can live there. They can be fed there. If these needs are not met, wow, it's serious. There's not enough food. There's no food in the house one day, and the woman is not there one day. She's gone, and there's no explanation why. And it's like basic insecurity on the basic level of eating, sleeping. Then it's serious. It's like, wow, it's not happening there. But I should make some plan to move somewhere else, my uncle's place or whatever. So my observation is that if you're constant in fulfilling these needs, and of course, important also is to be with devotees, to still devotees. Because the devotees will carry the rest also. Then the children will sum up, will actually respond more than you expect. Like me, for example, I live in Sharanagati, and because in the Methodistic culture, when the child gets to teenage year, he wants to go away from the family. Generally speaking. Because the experience was so bad that he's ready to take off away and then never sees his parents after that. Me by me an exception. But most it's like that. But our children are not like that. They want to stay with us. Like my son lived next to me, and my daughter, two of my daughter have houses there at the same place, and we're all like that. And we reunite every Saturday. We have a family reunion. It's an extended family with other people. All the husbands are like 25 people every Saturday that week. But the connection is still there after another kid. My son is 35 years old. My daughters are 33 and 30. And then my younger daughters are 23 and 21. After one of them is here. But there's always a place to go back. Like even my young daughter, she's married and she lives here in Mayapur. She knows she can go back to my house anytime for free. She can have a room there, there's a shelter there, she can go there. And then when she goes back to Sharanagati, her brother will be there, her sister will be there, father, mother, everybody is there. So then that's what means that security. Children need security to grow. So a place like Sharanagati is a very secure place. First of all, it's isolated from the neighborhood. It's all paid for, and you own your own land, and you build your own house. It's yours. And then the management is not like whimsical management, like you change every month or something. But it's like a corporation. The manager becomes like it's a school, it's a temple, it's a village. So everybody is like, oh, okay, hey. Even if I'm broke, even if I don't have money, I can still live in my house because I don't pay rent, I can do my own food in my garden, and I can eat at my son's house, So the needs are taken care of. So the security is greatly, when you're secure, you can think for yourself, you can make a decision for yourself, and you're eager to participate to increase the momentum that's going on there. So, that's my experience, what I experienced. Because I lived 15 years in this time. Not that I'm not in this time anymore. I lived 15 years like, Montreal Temple, Ottawa Temple, New York, Philadelphia, Gainesville, and not finding a home. Not really finding a home. Like dedicating my life to this time. But my wife and my children were studying against security and all this. But when we moved to Sharanagati, the security and the natural development was able to manifest because of the stability and the different mood of the environment for the guests. So it was very conducive for even me. I also found peace gradually right away, because you have room to live your life. If you're not like a Mahabhagavat preacher every day, well, you have some desire, you have your life to live. And Krishna, I want you to live your life also. It's not like you want you to become a Mahabhagavat and all by every day of your life. Not everybody is able to do that. So if you're not at that level and you need this shelter, you have to either create it yourself or move it to a place where it is actually there already and participate in that lifestyle. You protect yourself, protect your wife, protect your children. It's like a formula that works. Even if it isn't imperfectly applied, if some elements are applied, you get the benefit already. And I experienced that in my life. So then we moved there. Wow, now I'm in my house, got my land. I just had to leave a bit of money to put the food on the table. Like all the problems that were, because before that, my wife was in New York, becoming Google. My son was in Florida, Google. I was in Montreal collecting money. Totally insane. And then the GDC in the Guru were like something was falling down. And there was no money there at that place, so I had to move to the other place. A total nightmare. Total nightmare. It became impossible to live there anymore. soon as we realize, okay, he can't help us, the guru Devaki, it's not his duty to supply food for my kids. It's my duty to do that. So as soon as you understand your role, the role you have to play, and also sometimes you have to create it. Because there's no guru, you only have to send a kid to come to school. Well, maybe you should try to develop that guru. That's what happened in Charanagati. There was too much disturbance in Vancouver in the era of living in charity. So it was okay, well, let's buy land for ourselves. Let's pull out of all this, let's buy land for ourselves, take care of all the families, and then introduce public health order also spiritually channel around and gradually manifest it. And not that we deny or not that we find fault with what people could not know by now. We took our position to expand the ISKCON in our own way. It's an expansion of ISKCON, necessary expansion.
Yeah.
So
Good.
That's my experience.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Just to add what Prabhu said and what Mataji was mentioning, in India I have seen the joint family structure really works. Even if there's a husband and wife, or if let's say the unfortunate event that the husband dies or even the mother dies, wife dies, the children receive the male energy and the female energy from grandparents or uncles and aunts. And I've also seen that sometimes the parents are more irritable because they haven't aged enough, they haven't matured enough. I'm not talking about devotees, let's say even cousins. They aren't so mature, they also have some aspirations, or they get quickly inflamed into arguments. Then the children find nice shelter with the grandparents, with uncles and aunts who are a little bit older. Plus they also have sometimes, like, somebody's an only child, there are cousins, and so there is this thing that works with the children. In the same way, the grandparents have a lot of time, so they're kind of able to give a lot of selfless love compared to parents who probably, are working and are irritable, or not enough time, or they have aspirations, they want the child to perform to this level because it's their name and fame. So those issues, I've seen that. And I've also seen that this prevents children sometimes playing one parent against the other. And I've seen that even when there's nuclear families, some parents are very wise. The children want to get something and say, okay, mother's not giving, so they want to cozy up to the father, so both of them gang up against the mother and they get it. But then I've seen that intelligent parents, they refuse, If mother has said no, then it's a no. And mother said, the father said no, it's a no, even if they don't agree with each other.
Yes.
And I had a question actually. This about servants. You were mentioning that parents should give time to their children.
Yes.
But I find that I'm a little concerned also that sometimes parents, they leave their children with servants and then they go about doing other things. To the extent the servant is spending a major part of the time with the child and the consciousness is being transferred by the servant.
Yeah, this is the essence of this letter there we were reading to Unuji, that Prabhupada says, I'm simply surprised that you want to give up your child to some other person, even they are also devotees. So that's the whole issue, especially when the child is young. It needs the mother. It needs the mother. Yes.
And if there is time, I'd like to hear what devotees can respond to what Prabhu asked.
Okay.
It's a nice question actually.
So you pose your question to the ladies. Go ahead.
You lost?
No, let's repeat the question first.
We know from Shastra that the recommendation is that wife, even if the husband is really irritable or too cruel, if she takes a submissive position, the husband will naturally soften up and manifest compassion, and understanding. So, but on the other hand, what if the irritation and the cruelty or whatever comes from the lady's side? What would you say a man's attitude or response to that aggressiveness would change the heart of the lady? Am I explaining myself?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it helps you or so. Do you like my experience? I was really, sorry. It helped me when a man can control his senses, because I think women are more in need of passion and emotional and everything. And when the man controls his senses and is like dominating substance, I don't know, non-verbal, like his behavior is like he can control the situation. Even when the woman is shouting and everything, he can give her that clue that this situation he can control her. And because he controls himself, his senses and everything, so when he don't react like the woman, then the woman feels like, oh, okay, he's cool. So he immediately gets his mood. Or thinks about, oh, I'm shouting here alone. So maybe I should. Because when the man also come and say and shout, then it's like ping pong, and he and then everything, and then he gets everything from pastimes within this situation and so on. So I think it helps a lady when she's oh, he's a gentleman. He's a gentleman, so I should be a lady. And then
Thank you.
What really helped me often that when I get emotional, so we will start to teach me, read the philosophy. Being my role is very important in the family, and something I forgot because too much thinking in the material things you forget about this when you're doing your service. And often my emotion was based on that, because missing to be in the temple is living in the temples, they were very hard. And often you can talk to me and bring the philosophy on for things and great and okay, So that was my shelter for that level. And I liked when it was reading that all the time. It was important to hear that. And that could be more time for me. If you forget about it, don't do it back.
Anything else from anybody?
It's not about the question you asked. While I was reading the letter to Early the Deep by Srila Prabhupada, especially what Prabhupada said and even Prabhupada has written about family life. So here when Prabhupada is mentioning that the children born in Krishna consciousness are not ordinary children, but they are from Vaikuntha. Like for me, when I understand Vaikuntha, such an exalted place, and children from there, they come to the material world. But if we don't give them proper training and proper caring overall, they can lose the Krishna consciousness. So for me, it's like even children come from Vaikuntha, if there is no proper love, care, whatever I'm learning from yesterday and more to learn, if these things are not present, we lose them in the material world. So I'm thinking about the importance of training and being a good mother and father, and how it's more than a job of being a Vaikuntha person.
Yes. Well, I mean, as I added already, the way I understand Prabhupada's comment, it's not that the children come from Vaikuntha, it's not that they're coming from the spiritual world to take birth in our family. I don't really understand it that way. but Prabhupada says there are Vaikuntha children, meaning, you know, that they're very special, they're elevated souls, but it doesn't mean they're coming straight from Vaikuntha.
It could mean that they are headed to Vaikuntha afterwards. We're supposed to, if we do the right thing.
Or maybe Goloka Vrindavan, why Vaikuntha, you know? So, yeah, the way I understand it, it's simply Prabhupada's expression to make clear that they're not ordinary children, but very special, because in other purports he's also describing how when a devotee doesn't make it in one life back to Godhead, he will take birth in a devotee family and continue, you know? So, and that's why Prabhupada says they're Vaikuntha children, very special, right, like that. You know?
The temples are meant to be embassies of Vaikuntha.
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
the Goloka Vrindavan, Vaikuntha literally means that place where there is no anxiety.
Yes.
That means the whole spiritual world.
Yes.
And including our home, if we don't allow anxiety to enter.
Yes. Shall we still quickly do our personal exercise share with our neighbor? Even though it's a little late. No, so many people already left, you know. So I feel we should quickly do our final exercise here and share. What are we taking out of here?
That extended family. Like all the grandkids, they both have two grandfather, two grandmother. Then they have their other brother, then they have